So whenever I bring up the word privilege in conversation, people become incredibly dismissive or angry or defensive to the point where they stop engaging with the idea being discussed as a whole.
Firstly,
there are different levels to this privilege thing, and in some way or another, we are all privileged. There's heterosexuality privilege, there's Christianity privilege, you see, we're all learning. But at the same time, if you are called privileged and you notice that you're in a position of privilege, don't you see that as an opportunity to be a better person and make a difference instead of just being offended 24/7 because people are calling you privileged? Nah, man.
Secondly, and most importantly,
privilege is knowing where you're going to sleep tonight. It's knowing where your next meal will come from. It's having two parents. Privilege is being able to legally marry the person that you love.
Privilege doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you haven't faced struggles. It isn't a competition or a scale of oppression. It means that there's a system in place which is allowing one social group to benefit or to reap benefits and rewards from something which is inaccessible to other social groups.
To me, privilege is having an advantage in the situation. Whether you've planned it, whether you haven't, if you so happen to have an advantage in any given situation, we would then say you are privileged or you would be the privileged one.
An example of privilege would be that right now in our country, tertiary education is regarded as a privilege. Why? Because only a certain group of people can go to tertiary, and that particular group of people that have that advantage are those people that can afford to pay for the fees.
It's a problem because we have a lot of people who are privilege denialists, but privilege does exist. In history we've seen it, we see it today.
Privilege is having your identity not called into question. Privilege is walking down the street without being catcalled. Privilege is being allowed to love who you want to love. Privilege is marching in South Africa without being shot at by police. Privilege is an easy life.
Is that it's historically based and it's society based. It's not we hate you because you're white, it's you have more power than us, acknowledge that power, use it to benefit us. And here's the really cool thing about privilege, right? It can be incredibly beneficial and it can be incredibly useful when used in the right ways. Because this, the practical application of privilege within our society is that it gives some people more power. It gives their voices more airtime. It gives their voices more legitimacy within conversations that we have within our society.
Privilege is taking something for granted and not realizing that you should be working for this, that this doesn't just happen.
You know, it's on the lines of when you get your first car when you turn 18, or you're able to go to a high school that costs more than university fees. There's nothing wrong with privilege at all. I mean, it's a blessing somewhat, but there's only something wrong with it when you refuse to acknowledge its presence in your life or are ignorant about it.
In a nutshell, I believe that privilege is the inability to empathize with others because the issues that they might be dealing with aren't the same as the issues that you might be dealing with. Thus, you don't recognize it as issues at all because they're not yours. Thus, they are not issues.
For example, if an act of the president doesn't affect your pocket, then you don't care because it doesn't matter because you still have all of your privileges, all of your social, economic and political rights or privileges.
I think you have to be aware of privilege and not necessarily be ashamed or feel guilt because of privilege. If you live with the knowledge that you know that you have been advantaged by history because of your race, your gender, your ethnicity, then you can actually actively help and try to better privilege and help underprivileged people to also hopefully become privileged.
I think going into Woolworths and not looking at any price tag, I think that's the one, you know, with that Woolies black card, you know what I mean? Now I'm saying.
That is privilege.